It's the police contract, policing consulting contract that's in front of us. It's something that I support. I'm real proud as a city that we have initiated this direction that we're moving on to reimagine public safety. And I think that the more advice and consultation we get, the better we'll be. And I'm real proud that we're taking as a council the lead in trying to make Austin, which is a really safe big city, into an even safer big city. There are a lot of cities that are already involved in this conversation as well, and we've already made the advancements that many other cities are looking at. And I'm proud that Austin is able to serve as a best practice for a lot of those cities in those conversations. And I hope we continue to stay at the cutting edge. I speak right now just because we're not going to be together as a group for several weeks going into January, and in relation to policing and the things that are being looked at. We allowed in the work that we did before for the possibility that one or two of our police cadet classes still might begin in fiscal year 21, depending on factors such as a revised curriculum and successfully being able to complete and work forward the kind of recruiting process that we'd like to have. And I'm recognize that we've done that. A real benefit, I think, of doing the reimagining of public safety is a decreased need for the number of sworn officers, less reliance on our police as mental health first responders. As we house more people that are experiencing homelessness, less reliance on our police officers as our social workers. That said, I still think there's a critical role for police in our community, even reimagined, that there's a need for a professional and well-trained force that actually and substantially, in ways that we would like, reflect the culture and values of our city. I think that future cadet classes make sure that we have that police force and present a real opportunity to make sure that we have the kind of police training that we want, and that we create and integrate real cultural change agents onto the force, that we use those cadet classes to improve racial diversity within APD. I know that council has approved overall policing staffing levels in the past budget. In order to be able to maintain even those levels in the face of normal attrition, we're going to need to have some ongoing cadet classes. I know that the curriculum review process is underway. So all that said, by preamble, I just want to say that I, for one, would like the process to move quickly so as to allow for a cadet class in the spring. I, for one, would like the manager to be able to come back with a proposal and a timeline that accomplishes that goal. And I recognize that's increased urgency and timing. It takes time to recruit cadets. It's made more complicated by the present pandemic situation. So I, for one, think that we need to start now in order to be ready as the curriculum review is accomplished. It's my understanding that the APD training begins with several weeks, and if not several months, of state mandated courses that I understand are not currently under review because they're mandatory. What that might mean then is that the actual Austin specific training that is so critically important, a critical component of reimagining policing, public safety, might start later in that cadet class, giving us even additional time to make sure that we're implementing well. It's my hope that an upcoming class could really be among the change makers and change agents, folks that truly recognize where we are in this conversation and the desire of the community to reimagine public safety and policing, and class that embraces the community's vision for reimagining public safety and enhancing of the culture of the department. So I, for one, would like to see us move forward with a greater sense of urgency might otherwise exist to do what it takes in order to initiate a cadet class this spring. Leslie.
Thanks, Steve, for those comments. I completely agree. And in fact, yesterday, I had a good conversation with the manager asking for a status update on where we are on the writing of the refreshened curriculum. It's really important that we get that squared away and that we move forward. It has been difficult to communicate effectively, I think, to our residents here how much we support a positive view of our values and culture with regard to the police department. Every barrel can have a couple of bad apples in it, but that can have a real dragging effect on the entire barrel. And I just want to support the comments that I'm hearing both from you today and from others of my colleagues previously, that we do support good work and the good officers and good officer behaviors and interactions with our community from the police department. Standing up the academies next year is vital to our continuing to have good, positive interactions and relationships between the community and our police department. And it's imperative that that we move forward with that as quickly and as professionally as possible. I think there were some comments I read from Corby Jastrow with the Greater Austin Crime Commission asking for that very thing. Can we not press forward to try to get our cadet class 1 or 2 next year? And I think with the good work that people from the Justice Coalition and Just Liberty and our other stakeholders are doing with regard to curriculum development and input, and also from the public safety side of the house, that we should have successes there. And so as far as timing, as quickly as possible that we can do that and do it well. The quality, of course, has got to be paramount, but we also need to press forward with all urgency. Thanks.
Okay. Greg?
The council has voted on this multiple times, and the first time was after we had important testimony from cadets that dropped out of the academy and laid out really compelling reasons about why there needed to be change. And so I think we all are committed and should remain committed to fixing the things that we've been told for months aren't working. And so I, for one, want to make sure that that process is deliberate, isn't rushed, and that we establish a standard of what we think is acceptable, given the testimony we heard from those former cadets in the community, and that we should make sure that we are meeting that standard, and of course meeting that standard on a reasonable and expeditious timeline. But I think now that it has been quite some time since we had that testimony, I just don't want the public or any of us to forget what it is that we heard from those former cadets, because it really opened my eyes to how much change is necessary in the academy.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak on this issue 48? Councilmember Harper Madison.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll say I both recognize and appreciate what you've presented here, what Councilmember Poole has presented here, what Councilmember Kassar has presented here, because the truth of the matter is all of those things are true and they all get to exist in the same space and time. Yes, we need a professional, well-trained, well-paid force, but we also shouldn't have to take the opportunity to delineate between good and bad officers. We should just make the assumption that we've put the protections in place and best practices in place, that we feel assured that what we're producing by way of our professional police academy is uniformed officers who understand what their responsibilities are to the community, how to engage in appropriate professional behavior with all our citizens, and how to avoid putting themselves, the department, and the city in compromised positions by way of misconduct. And so I certainly appreciate that we need to move forward. I would like very much, and I've said all along, as we started this process with a resolution that I authored, I would like very much for us to be able to move forward with recruitment efforts and our cadet classes. I hope, though, that we don't lose sight of the importance of making certain that we've established some degree of proficiency and readiness. I don't think anybody would be willing to make compromises, especially because we've been able to witness what the manifestation is when we are not prepared with a fully professional, accountable police department. I would certainly hope that nobody wants to rush a process that's so important.
Councilor Kitchen.
I just want to add my voice to what everyone is saying. I think that I think, as Councilmember Harper Madison said, all these things are true. I think that Mayor, you've suggested a path that could potentially work. I think the bottom line, of course, for us is that that we need these changes made, that we have been that we identified and set a path towards, a while back, and so they need to be made. And I am hopeful that that can be done, because I agree, as you said, Mayor, that that we need to get to the point where we can stand up additional classes. So what I would say to the city manager is let's get this done. Let's get the training changes made so that we have a path, as the mayor has suggested.
Councilmember Tovo.
Yeah, I appreciate all of the comments so far, and I'll just add that I know that several of us, and I will just speak for myself, have emphasized to the manager over the last month, certainly since we took the vote over the summer, but even before that, as Councilmember Harper Madison indicated, she brought forward a resolution about the cadet training classes now, I believe, more than a year ago. I thought that set a very direct path forward for what a priority it should be to revise that curriculum, and I'm 100% in support of it, and have emphasized over this last year to the manager multiple times the importance of getting that work done, so that we could have those cadet classes meeting again as soon as possible. And so I absolutely support that process taking place. I would again just add my support to the amendment that was made this summer that Mayor Adler and Councilmember Alter and I supported, and Councilmember Harper Madison, I believe you were also a co-sponsor on that a cadet class could take place if the revision work had happened. And so, Manager, I really would urge you to get that work done, just as I hope that some of that work has taken place so that we could see that cadet class as early as next spring. I think it's an important thing to move forward to do if we're prepared in terms of the curriculum having been revised.
Councilmember Alter.
Thank you, Councilmember Tovo, for bringing up the budget rider that we worked on with Councilmember Harper Madison and Mayor Adler, which set forth action for the city manager to come back with a budget amendment to move forward with a cadet class. And I just wanted to invite the city manager to speak with us on the timetable as to where we are at. Obviously several of us have, probably all of us have been talking about this with you in private, and it would be, I think, helpful for you to provide some further insights to the community as to where that process is at this point.
Before the manager speaks, does anybody else want to speak to this issue before we go to the manager? Councilmember Renteria.
Yes, Mayor, and I also support what you're saying, and I just want to let the public know that, we haven't really, defunded the police officer. we still have a force that is the highest paid officers in the state of Texas. And we have supported them with all these benefits and high pay because we have a lot of faith in them. But there's something wrong with the training. And that's what my whole focus has been, is to make sure that they get the proper training to focus on working here in Austin. The citizens of Austin is paying the officers job, paying for their job, and so it's that, we need to sit down and work together with our, and really focus on the training that they're receiving. And I'm glad that they're what we've been focusing on, because it's very important. We were very close. We had a really great working relationship with the union. And, about 3 years ago, it just broke down, and it's been going downward ever since. And it's really not a fight with the police officers. We really support our police officers. It's just that we need to refocus, that we need our job, we need them to focus on Austin, and it's been a lot of distraction. This has been a very horrible year for us, with the pandemic and a president that was going out there and creating a lot of hate and anger. To just slow down everything and come back, and we need to work together. And I hope our police officer, the union especially, are hearing us and saying, we really want to work together, but we need to make sure that the training is getting done the right way for the citizens of Austin.
Councilmember Flanagan.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate this conversation, but I also think it's important to note that I feel like this is completely consistent with all of the work that we've done thus far, starting with Councilmember Harper Madison's resolution last year that I co-sponsored, including the work we did in the budget. I know we had a conversation about cadet classes next year in that August budget hearing, and many of us, myself included, expressed an interest in getting back to cadet classes as soon as the training is addressed. So I think despite the very extreme and misleading political rhetoric that's being put into our community, that has always been a consistent position from all of us on this council. And so, I also want to acknowledge that we often also tell the city manager to do everything faster. And that's not always a reasonable expectation either. So I am interested to hear the manager's response, but we are pretty bad at telling the manager to do 100 things and then you only give them money for 10. Which is often how I describe that.
And then I'll ask the manager then, Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you. And I'm sure the city manager has prepared his remarks and been ready to speak a couple times now, but there has been such detailed work going on behind the scenes. I know people oftentimes are saying, where are we in the process? And unless you're following our local city hall journalists or you're following, us and some of the work that we're doing, you may not be seeing it. But the Public Safety Committee is having very detailed, very lengthy conversations about how to properly calibrate our public safety responses and what it's going to look like to really reimagine public safety. And Deputy City Manager Nuria Rivera Vandermeid, sorry, I always have to slow down on her name. But her team's been doing a lot of great work too. And I did a public safety listening session with my district and greatly appreciate my District 8 constituents showing up and sharing their ideas with me and my team about what they think policing in a modern community is going to look like. And what I understood was that we are much more on the same page as it seems like we might be at times, but we want a safe community. We want to make sure we have the appropriate response. So when you need an armed trained officer to show up, that you've got that officer there. When you need a mental health call, you've got mental health assistants coming, community health paramedics helping in the downtown area. There are so many ideas that people have brought forward that we have been working on. And so I look forward to continuing this conversation and really showing the public what work has been going into it. Because I think they'll see that we are largely more on the same page about process, even if sometimes you do hear narratives that are conflicting.
Manager, I'm going to And with that, the manager disappears. I'm going to turn it over to you. But just to close, the purpose of me standing here or raising this issue, one is I think it is entirely consistent with what we did back in August. And I know that there's been a lot of work that's happening. We do want to reimagine police because we think it'll make us safer. And we think the work we're doing is going to impact potentially the number of officers we need if we can change the kinds of things that we expect of them, because we expect too many things right now. And we do need to make sure that we do these classes correctly and for the benefit that we wanted to see. I know there's a process that's set up. I know we have a lot of consultants that's involved. But one of the reasons I raised it now is I wanted to say that I want you to take a look at everything that's happening and figure out what it's going to take in order to be able to achieve all of those things and have this class in the spring, because I think that the time is also important. And, you know, taking a look at, you know, this consultant or other consultants or the timelines that have been established, also taking a look at whether or not the fact that the first several months is prescribed by the state and can't change, whether that gives us additional flexibility. But to the degree that we can, given all the high hopes and expectations and demands we have, my hope is that we can initiate a class this spring.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I certainly have appreciated this public discussion around how to ensure that we have a cadet academy and the curriculum that's appropriate for our community and that will really be training our officers in a different way than we have in the past. As you noted, there's been a lot of work already that has been done. There's coordination with other entities, consultants that we brought on board to ensure that all the recommendations that have been put forward and that will continue to put forward are aligning with the time frame that you are describing right now, that we would come back in the spring to be ready to initiate a class. But as has been noted, that would also involve coming forward with a budget amendment because all of the money that had been allocated for these training classes was reallocated by the council in August. And so we'll be working on that. We'll be making sure that we can present something for your consideration. But I know that part of this is also giving ongoing updates. And I've asked our deputy city manager to just describe a task force meeting that's going to be happening tomorrow. And we'll be touching on not only this process, but also all of the items that are in Resolution 66 from December of 2019. Deputy City Manager.
Thank you, City Manager, and hello, Mayor and Council members. First of all, I just wanted to be thankful for all of your support as we continue to reimagine public safety in the future. As the City Manager mentioned, we will be having another of our task force meetings this coming Wednesday. It is a longer meeting. It is from 4 to 8. And part of that meeting will be providing a quick update on the work that the city has been doing, both on the decoupling front, as well as continuing to work with the task force on those areas that fall on the reimagining front and helping form some work groups, hopefully, as we move forward. As part of those scopes of work, I'll say, and again, all kudos to the council who approved last November on the Resolution 66, approval of the Kroll and Associates vendor contract that really has fast-tracked and accelerated to the manager's request all the efforts on training. And we expect that report to come forward in March of next year. That report will consider previous reports that have been going on. There has been great work by Drs. Villanueva and Ferguson. PD has put some efforts. Community panels have been charged with looking at some of the training videos. So Kroll and Associates will certainly be bringing all that work and moving that forward. And in addition, we have asked 21CP, which is the contract that I know that ACM Shorter wrote to you about, will be looking and to help us with PD and with staff really on staffing concerns and bringing some of those recommendations as we move forward. So there has been a lot of work in this area, and know that we are both have a sense of urgency to bring the work forward, but are also being quite intentional and thoughtful to make sure that what we are bringing forward really responds to the moment and the criticisms and the changes that I think we all feel that we need in the future. So I appreciate your support and happy to answer any questions, but I also just invite anyone to tune in to Wednesday's task force meeting as well.
Colleagues, 12:30. Does anybody have anything else? Thank you, Deputy City Manager.